All right, hello, welcome back, everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. And also alongside them in the description is a link to a Google Drive folder with the graphs from this video and all kinds of different other graphs and data compilations. Anyways, it's time for the monthly oil demand level updates for countries that I can get data from at least. The U.S. remains obviously the top consumer, averaging around 20 million barrels per day pretty steadily for the last 2 decades or so. This time coming in midway between 20.8 and 20.9. China in the second spot, having gotten up to averaging 17 million barrels per day in present day, and is just beginning to curve out at that area now, this time coming in at 17.1. India continuing to climb, making the way up towards 6, is usually in the upper 5s now. This time they came in at 5.65 million barrels per day. Japan was once up at about 6, and over the decades they have declined down to averaging more around the upper 3s or even 3.5 from a combination of the upsurge in fuel efficiency over the last few decades, Japan's smart and incredible usage of broad public transit, and the aging of their population, since as people get older, they start going fewer places, not going to work, buying less things. This time in particular, they came in still a bit down, even from their modern day average at 3.11. Russia, back at the height of the USSR times in the 1980s, had a demand level of about 5 million barrels per day. Not the whole USSR. The whole USSR was up around 7 or 7.5, I think. But just Russia within the USSR had a demand level of about 5. That crashed down towards 2 in the 90s after the USSR fell apart and the Russian economy with it. They recovered with the Russian economy over the past couple decades, up close to 4 again until invading Ukraine. And in the economic aftermath from that, their demand levels crashed again, getting down to 2.7 or so at one point. However, over the last year, they've been gradually creeping their way back up and now are around 3.1, this time coming in a bit between 3.1 and 3.2 million barrels per day. South Korea in present day is leveling off around roughly 2.8 as a general average, and with their demographic pyramids outlook, they're about to start heading down like Japan at some point soon. This time they came in just under 3 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia fluctuating between 2 and 3 over the course of the year, much higher in summer because their electricity demand is higher then, and they still generate about a third of their electricity from oil-fired power plants. Their data is a bit staggered, so their latest numbers are from October, when their demand was continuing downwards, descending from its former summer height, and they came in at just under 2.5. Canada in present day is usually around 2.5 as an average. This time they came in a bit down from that at 2.13. Brazil was getting up towards 3, but then their economy fell apart in the second half of the 2010s. That brought their oil consumption back down, and they climbed back up from that a little bit, back up to averaging around 2.5 or 2.6. However, over the past year or so, they've dropped back down kind of decently towards the lower 2s, this time coming in at 2.26 million barrels per day. Germany, once up at 3 million barrels per day, for similar reasons to Japan, has declined down by about a third and averages closer to 2 million barrels per day now, this time coming in at 2.04. Indonesia in present day is up to averaging a bit above 2, and this time came in at 2.09. Iran is usually close to averaging 2, and this time came in between 1.7 and 1.8. Mexico did average 2 previously, but their consumption numbers have never recovered post-COVID, so they've only gotten back up to, at their highest point, 1.6, and this time they're down from that, though, at 1.45. France used to average 1.6 and post-COVID did recover back up to their norm, this time coming in at 1.62. The UK, however, did not, and despite averaging 1.6 pre-COVID, post-COVID, they have now settled into averaging more around 1.5. They're up by just a bit this time at 1.57. Italy in present day is down to averaging around 1.3, and this time they came in basically right on point at 1.29. Spain also averages 1.3, and this time they came in at 1.34. Thailand has not entirely recovered from their COVID demand slump, and they are now averaging between 1.1 and 1.2 instead of around 1.3, which is where they were at pre-COVID. This time they came in at 1.13. Turkey in present day has grown up to averaging around 1.2, and this time they came in just a bit down at 1.12. The city-state of Singapore got up to averaging about 1.4 pre-COVID in the mid or later 2010s. They have declined back down gradually to averaging under 1.2. This time they came in at 1.23. Australia has almost reached up to averaging 1.2 now. This time they came in at 1.15. The Netherlands, for the last few years, had averaged about 1 million, but now they've been creeping down to averaging closer to 900,000. This time, though, they came back up at 996. Taiwan was averaging 1 million flat for quite a while, but post-COVID, they have gradually dropped down to averaging more under 900, closer to 850. This time they came in decently down even from that, though, at 758. Iraq in present day is averaging up close to 900. However, they have not given us data for the last number of months, so the last time we had them, they were at 795. Egypt in present day is in the 800s, getting closer to 900,000. This time they came in at 837. Malaysia in present day is up around 800 or so, and this time they came in at 797. Poland set a new oil demand record this time, coming in with their most recent numbers up at 854,000 barrels per day. Argentina is usually in present day, when they're not in some kind of economic turmoil or internal collapse or crisis, they're usually around 700, and this time they come in at 743. Belgium used to average around 700 or between 650 and 700. Now they've declined to averaging more between 600 and 650. This time, though, they came in at 668. The Philippines is up to averaging 500,000 in present day, and they came in at 513,000 the last time we got data from them. South Africa finally gave us some new data again, covering up to summer of this year, in which they were down at only 382, as the country has kind of been falling apart over the last few years. Algeria in present day is getting close to averaging 500,000. This time they came in at 465,000. Kazakhstan came in a bit down from their usual. They're usually around 400 in present day, but this time they came in down at 274. Chile is usually around 400, and they came in basically right on point at 395. Peru is closing in on 300,000, and they have not updated for a few months, but the last update we got from them, they were at 283. Sweden averages around 300,000, and this time they came in at 284. Greece also averages around 300,000. This time they came in at 338. Morocco usually also averages around 300,000, and they came in at 285 a few months ago, the last time they updated. Romania usually averages around 250, and they have not updated also, but last time they came in at 244. Portugal also averages at 250, and this time they came in at 227. The 200 Club, a number of European nations that all average around 200, starting with Austria. This time they came in decently elevated at 261, along with the Czech Republic, who came in elevated at 248. Hungary came in almost right on point at 197. Switzerland came in at 221. Finland came in a bit down at 179, and Norway came in decently elevated at 288. And lastly, Venezuela, once at 800,000. Their consumption collapsed when the country collapsed in the later 2010s, down to only about 250, from which their consumption has gradually recovered up to averaging more around 300 now, and this time they came in at 296. All right, that's it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon links are down there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. There's a link in the description to that Google Drive I mentioned at the start, with folders and docs containing all kinds of different graphs, charts, data compilations, lists, and everything. That's free to access, free for you to use at any time. There's a link to my photography Instagram as well, and a link in the top pinned comment to my cat's YouTube channel. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.